Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and now that it's been more than 24 hours since the massacre on Sunday, let's move forward because, to be honest, upon a rewatch of the game, which wasn't fun at all, to some news which came out of Miami Gardens, things are on the up for our Fins. Today, we're going to touch on the latest surrounding the Miami Dolphins, as well as touch on some potential issues which may be plaguing the Las Vegas Raiders, this weekend's opponent. Get comfy and let the healing begin. Listeners, let's dive in.
The Bills were able to get home with just 4 pass rushers for most of the game. They didn't really have to blitz. When they did, of course, they were successful. But again, they were able to get 4 through that Miami offensive line to Jacoby Brissett. I'm going to keep an eye out, and I think we all are, of course, on Tua's injury. The initial x-rays were negative on Tua's ribs, but B-Mac, those ribs are going to start hurting. That side's going to start hurting. And we're going to have to see over this week, is he going to be able to throw the ball? Is he going to be able to throw the football effectively? Can he be an effective quarterback in week 3 of the NFL and beyond? That's something I'm going to be looking for.
Upon rewatching the game, something became clear. No, not that our offensive line was just as bad as we remembered, and no, the entire team laying an egg isn't exactly the clarity that I'm talking about. Instead, it was who was missing that spoke the loudest. In the 2 offensive drives which Miami had led by Tua, something was clear. The offense was not ready for the blitz packages presented by the Bills. Now, whose fault is this? That answer has multiple layers. Firstly, it's on the offensive coaches because both George Godsey and Eric Studesville must make it their responsibility to ensure that the offensive personnel are ready for whatever they see come game time. On those early drives, the first 2, the Bills showed 6 and at times 7 men at the line of scrimmage, and to combat that, all the Dolphins had was 5 linemen and a running back. To block up properly, the protection has to be called. And what that means is both the quarterback and center identify the Mike linebacker or the center of the defensive alignment on the front 7, and from there, the offensive line determines who they're responsible for. Whether the protection shifted to the right, left, head on, that's all determined pre-snap. I can't tell you whether this system, the one the Dolphins running, has that on the offensive line itself. The quarterback's responsible for making those calls, but regardless, based on that shift, there's going to be a free man coming off the edge. This free man, the unblocked defender, is who ultimately dictates the play. When you have a free edge defender, someone who can come screaming towards your quarterback, you have 3 choices to fight it. First, usually the most common, you have your running back, the 6th blocker, shift to that side. They pick up the free defender and buy the quarterback time. If not that, and you're in a situation where there is no 6th blocker, no running back, or they're bringing 7 and you don't have a 7th blocker, based on simple mathematics, you would have to do a hot route. Or put another way, it's a receiver who's going to be open quickly, or if the route combination doesn't call for a quick route, the quarterback has to call it out. Whether that's a quick screen, a slant, whatever. That receiver has to be ready to bail the quarterback out. Then there's a third option. The option the Dolphins did time and time again in the drives featuring Tua, as well as for the rest of the game. That option is that none of the above occurs, you don't have a hot route, and you don't have the proper protection, and the running back goes in the opposite direction. When that happens, well, you get smacked. And in the worst case scenario, you get your quarterback injured. That's what happened to the Dolphins. As Flores said himself, it was just putrid execution. Now, what we don't know on the outside looking in is who's specifically to blame here. In all likelihood, there were errors on multiple fronts. Play to play, it was someone else's fault, but someone at large bears the majority of the responsibility, and they know it. The good news, it's correctable, because thankfully, those pressures weren't coming from the interior. It wasn't just a pure inability to block the man in front of you. Instead, it was a scheme issue. The scheme issues can be corrected much faster and much easier. This line is capable of playing better. And with that, we move to the offensive line personnel themselves. I mentioned this in the last episode. Be sure to check that out if you haven't yet. But I don't see the Dolphins making any splash moves. So no, none of the veteran free agent tackles out there are likely going to be signed and brought in. Listen, I'd love to be wrong on that. But from what I believe to understand about this current regime of the Miami Dolphins, they tend to double down. They lean on their coaching, they lean on corrections, and they trust their players to improve. That doesn't mean we won't see changes, though. Look, as much as we dislike the current trajectory of Austin Jackson, Greg Little isn't much better. And unlike Jackson, he gets beat in pure one-on-one situations far more often. He showed it while in Carolina, and he showed it in the preseason against far inferior talent than he would face on NFL Sundays in the fall. Austin Jackson stays at left tackle. The only other guys I don't see moving, center Michael Dieter and right guard Robert Hunt. In my fantasy world, I would love to see Derval Quiroz-Neto get a real shot at left guard. We talked about it in the preseason, but he looked really good with the reps he was given. He's been in the system now for 3 years. He's in year 2 of a transition to offensive guard from defensive tackle. He's just as powerful as Solomon Kindley, in my opinion. And to be honest, he very well may be more technically sound because he's learned it at the NFL level with that technical ability, while Solomon Kindley his whole life has relied on his size and power and might not be as refined as a guy like Derval. I doubt that's going to happen. I think they're going to keep working with Kindley, but another week or two of subpar play, and we could very well see that move. What I do expect to see, and frankly, if this doesn't occur, I'll be pissed, is getting Jesse Davis out of the lineup. To be fair to him, despite being the sole reason for Tua's injury and a general liability on the offensive line, Jesse Davis was battling a knee injury. My question, though, has Brian Flores inherited some unbridled stubbornness from his predecessor, Bill Belichick? Because at this point, Jesse Davis has shown he isn't a capable starter at right tackle, and his injury just compounds that fact. If we see 77 trot out there again, and if he struggles like he has been for the last 10-plus games at this point, then that's no longer on him. That's on the coaches for continuing to put him out there. I believe it's time to invest in your high-ceiling second-round tackle, Liam Eichenberg. I think he showed plenty in the preseason and in week 1 when he played left tackle to merit some legitimate consideration to start for you at right tackle. I would expect that move, and yes, implementing another young guy on your line, essentially removing all veteran leadership on Sunday, that is scary. But it can't be scarier than what we witnessed at Hard Rock just days ago. Make the move, Flores. Make the move. We'd just like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor of the show, MyBookie. MyBookie is always the right play. You bet, you win, they pay. MyBookie has live in-game betting on every NFL game. They've got the most rewarding player perks in the business. And for you fantasy guys out there, you can even bet the over-under on how many fantasy points a player will score each game. To help yourselves out, as well as us on the show, use our promo code PhinsPod to get up to $1,000 first deposit bonus to double your first deposit. Again, that's promo code PhinsPod to activate this offer. Visit MyBookie online today with the link in our bio or visit mybookie.ag, and don't forget to use the promo code PhinsPod when creating your account to claim the bonus. Bet, win, get paid. The next piece of news we're going to touch on is Tua Tagovailoa's status for Week 3. The Dolphins face the 2-0 Raiders at Allegiant Stadium in what suddenly feels like a pivotal game for this season. Losing would mean Miami falls to 1-2 with tough games against the Colts and Tampa Bay Buccaneers ahead of them. As we saw last week, and despite what Mr. Jacoby Brissett himself thinks, he's not a true starter. He's not someone you can confidently go into a game with and feel like you should win. I mean, unless you're playing the Jags or the Jets. But having Jacoby Brissett play would just open up the door for problems that we touched on at the top of the show, and you would lose big playability in the passing game. Because going back to rewatch, something else became clear. The offense was deflated after losing Tua. Whether you dislike that or absolutely hate it, it's true. The line lost even more juice, the receivers were out of sorts, and the play calling became inconsistent. People could read that multiple ways. This team isn't very good, Brissett just blows, or what I believe to be true, Tua is truly important to our success. I mean, come on, guys. We've built this offense with Tua Tagovailoa at the helm. The RPO offense, the specific skill sets of the receiving core, it's all meant to enhance what the second-year signal caller does well. Losing him is like trying to fly a plane without the engines running. You can continue to coast, but you're losing altitude fast, and the people inside are panicking. Okay, not a great analogy, but you get my point. This offense goes as Tua goes, and if he isn't going, we're going to have problems. Here's the thing. I believe with certainty in my battered Dolphins fan soul that number one is suiting up to go on Sunday. Why? Well, couple reasons. First, the injury itself. According to all reports, Tua didn't break or fracture his ribs, he bruised them. Still painful, but a break in the bone is a different story. Second, Brian Flores stated when speaking to the media on Monday that Tua attempted to go back into the game against the Bills. He sat up in the locker room, saw his team flailing, and said, "Put me back in, coach." But with the guidance of the medical staff and the general state of affairs for Miami's protection, he was vetoed. Probably the right decision. Unless he's an absolute maniac, the fact that he tried to come back in says a couple things to me. First, the injury was not so debilitating that he felt like he couldn't breathe, he couldn't perform. And second, it should be significantly better with a week of not getting hit. If he was trying to get back in right after the injury, when the pain was at its most, after the x-rays and ultrasound, he should be good to get back a week later. The other reason why I believe Tua will play is because he's a tough son of a gun. Looking throughout his career, going back to Alabama, Tua has played through pain. He came back just weeks after ankle surgery, against the advice of some medical professionals, to duel Joe Burrow and the loaded LSU Tigers. He played through all that pain in college, and we saw him play through pain last season when he injured his thumb. That injury forced him to miss the game against the Jets, but he returned and played out the rest of the season. Whatever you may think of his game, his ability to perform on the field, don't question his toughness. If he can go, Tua Tagovailoa will go. And this season is huge for Tua. He knows it. He knows he's being judged by not only the outside world, something I doubt he seldom thinks or cares about, but for him, he's being judged by his own teammates and his organization. Are you the guy to lead this team? Him playing on Sunday, a week after his own team let him down, him playing through pain, putting this same team above all else, that should make his teammates around him ready to run through a wall for him. That's how you get inspired football. And that's why if he's able to come back like I believe him to, the offense will perform much better. Not only will they have a competent quarterback out there running the offense catered to his skill set, but they'll also play at a higher level for their young leader. We'll find out in the coming days. And look, I don't expect Flores to say whether he's going to go or not. Why would he? As of now, it makes sense for the coaching staff to play it coy. Force the Raiders to prep for an offense run by Jacoby Brissett, waste time on that, as well as if Tua plays or not, they have to prepare for that. Keep them guessing and limit that prep in every single way that you can. Speaking of the Raiders, they're dealing with some injury concerns of their own. Firstly, their star running back, Josh Jacobs, also of Alabama fame, is, quote, highly questionable, according to head coach John Gruden. Now, just like I said earlier about games the Dolphins coaches could play, this very likely could be a ruse from the Raiders. After Carr got rolled up as well, he's also listed as questionable, at least according to John Gruden, but he injured his foot and ankle in the game last week against the Steelers, and then he proceeded to go to the sideline, get it taped up, and come back out to score 10 more points for the Raiders as they went on to defeat the Steelers. If he came back then, I see no reason why he won't be ready a week later, despite the misdirect that the Raiders coaches are trying to do right now. Their backup is Nathan Peterman, someone I know we as fans would love to see, and Xavier Howard would love to see. But again, fully expect Derek Carr to go in the game unless there's a setback this week in practice or more news pops up. But I fully expect Derek Carr to play. The thing is, though, an ankle injury to a quarterback is no joke. Not only does it impact your ability to plant and throw, it also affects your general mobility. If Carr is less threatening outside the pocket or is prone to having a few missed throws due to his ankle, that only benefits us. Speaking of Josh Jacobs as well, his injury already forced him to miss week 2, and we can't really determine whether the Raiders coaches are overplaying that injury or if he's going to be ready to return. Because honestly, he was already out last week, and we don't generally know the severity of that injury. Based on their weekly injury report, and also whether he's listed as did not participate versus limited on that report, I think it's going to help us figure out whether or not he's going to play in the coming days. They don't have the worst set of backup running backs either, as we'll be seeing our friend Kenyon Drake, as well as veteran Peyton Barber. We'll be getting into the specifics of the matchup against the Raiders in the coming days, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, just so you don't miss a thing. Listen, guys, I said this in the last episode, but I really believe it. A coach and his team aren't judged by their blowout losses, it's by their bounce back. We just got bit-slapped in the face, punched in the gut, and then kicked while on the ground. How are we going to stand back up? If you believe in Flores and in the core of this team like I do, then you expect to see a significantly better performance out of our boys this weekend. If you're negative and have allowed the past to seep into your fandom, then screw it. We're fucked, aren't we? I guess we'll find out which type of fan will be proven right in the end, but I will say this. If you're negative and we continue to suck, will you really be feeling better than me and the rest of the Dolphins fans who expect more from this team? No, we're all going to be sad. So what's the harm in having a little faith, huh? Trust me, it's a lot brighter and sunnier on this side of the fence.
I'm always uncomfortable when that issue comes up. If it's pain, how tough is a guy? Well,
Yes.
they're all tough. Anybody who walks across that thick white stripe onto a football field is tough, and you play through pain from time to time. The question is there a way to play through pain in a way that does not undermine your performance? When you've got a rib injury on the left side of your body and you are left-handed, that's going to impair your ability to throw the ball. And there's also a chance you're going to have an unfortunate encounter with Dr. Needle if they decide to use a pain-killing injection to allow you to do it. And even if a rib isn't broken, you can have bruised rib cartilage. I went through a litany of my non-football injuries with Mike Golick today on PFT Live. I've had broken ribs. I've had bruised rib cartilage. Let me tell you, it hurts the same. So he clearly was in pain yesterday, and we'll just have to see. Look at that. Who would not be in pain? I don't care what kind of a flak jacket you're wearing. You get driven into the ground like that, you're going to be in pain. And we'll see if he can get it turned around. But it looks like it's not going to be an extensive time situation. Shireen, I thought, hey, if this guy's out for a long period of the season, the Deshaun Watson stuff is going to heat up. It looks like that's not going to happen. The question is, will he be ready to go on Sunday? And if not this week, will he be ready to go the next week?
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, as always, to Timothy Ritchie and Brian Guger, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the continued support over there. And please remember to like this video if you enjoyed the show. Subscribe wherever it is you're listening, just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. If you're watching on YouTube and you're like, damn, I want to listen to this show while going to work, well, no worries. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and of course, also on YouTube. Continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram @PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. Until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.